Hello, it's Randi Rhodes. Here's a clip from our show, and go to randyrhodes.com for the whole thing and a podcast. Buy a stinking podcast.
The fault. We believe that all men are created equal.
To the magnificent mosaic that is America.
From radio beacon to radio beacon.
I have a dream today.
Change has come to America.
Believe me.
Knock, knock. Who's there?
It's a figment of your imagination.
Randi Rhodes Show.
Turn up your mind.
We need to make America good again. We return the knowledge of God to our land, and God will heal our land. We don't need to make it complicated. We can't change the heart. Somebody asked me this afternoon, how can we do this? And I said, it's simple. Recognize God. Acknowledge God again. It's not complicated.
They've usurped the moral prerogative. Now,
no,
if you want
I don't
to ask,
understand your answer.
Sure.
I think it's a yes or no. Do you think that homosexuality or homosexual conduct should be illegal today? That's a yes or no question.
Homosexual conduct should be illegal. Yes.
Should be illegal.
Yes. It is immoral. It is defined by the law as detestable. It was against the law in most states until the Supreme Court in Lawrence v. Texas said that it wasn't.
We were declared to be one nation under God in the Declaration of Independence because it was the laws of nature and of nature's God who gave us that right.
Or the land of the pea and the home of the depraved. Everybody, let's pray about it. Why, Your Honor, that murder happened 40 years ago. You cannot possibly hold me accountable for that. The dead people haven't said anything about me being the killer. Oh, geez. Oh, for the love of Pete. Oh, my God. Oh, you know, this whole Roy Moore story yesterday, the Washington Post, the entire story is in our homework section today for your perusal from yesterday, but it's in today's homework because it broke so late. So we put it in randyrhodes.com/homework. And of course, if you're on the Facebook page this weekend, just click on the homework section below. And you could read the whole article, which is sourced to 30 different people. 30 people. The mother of this girl. And the stuff that goes on the Twitters. Oh, my God. One guy on the Twitters last night, I had to actually get into an argument with him over the Twitter, which is something that, only in America. He actually said that his brother had dated this fat cow, Lee Korfman, who obviously in the photograph of her when she was 14 was adorable. I don't know what she looks like these days, but adorable. He said, my brother dated that fat cow in 1976, to which I replied, in 1979, she was 14. Your brother dated her when she was 11? Oh, Alabama. Just a good old boy. Yeah, I mean, this is unbelievable because, look, the president has been accused by, 14, 15 women of sexual assault. Bill O'Reilly has been accused and paid $35 million in sexual assault. You've got Roger Ailes over at Fox News. I would say may he rest in peace, but I don't really want him to. He's been, adjudicated, or at least settled with women for sexual assault. I mean, what's crazy is the Republicans only believe Democrats when they're accused of, look, Bill Clinton, that was, consensual sex, and she was 24, which is young, yes, but, you're talking about teenage women here, teenage girls. You're talking about, and when I think of people like Judge Roy Moore, who has made some of the most disgusting decisions on the bench, when in the 1990s, first of all, remember this. They're going to say, the Republicans are going to say some really heinous stuff. I'm going to play it for you. But the heinous stuff that they're saying is pretty much that Roy Moore has run for office so many times and nobody's ever said anything like this. So what's the big deal? And I'll tell you why that is. That is because this is a scandal from Alabama, but not in Alabama. because the good old boys don't find anything disgusting, untoward, and can't figure out that sexual assault is unwanted touching while rape is penetration. They just don't understand. They don't get the diff. For them, it's like, unless it's full on and probably anal too, it wasn't anything bad. And then if it was anal, you know, and it was a Republican, it was a wide stance. Larry Craig, Idaho. I mean, really, I got the Hall of Fame right here in front of me, but, and we'll go through it. But I have to tell you, this is unbelievable. Alabama, the indefensible is pretty much, you know, it's like the deplorables are indefensible, and indefensible is all the deplorables have, and so they defend the indefensible because it's all they have to choose from. When you put up a guy like Roy Moore, who from the bench actually said that a woman who cheated on her husband with another woman should lose custody of her children and not be provided visitation rights, and not particularly because of the adultery, oh no, but because of the woman she cheated with was an indication of homosexuality, and that the children would be harmed by the homosexuality if they visited with their mother. Now, I think everybody understands this. My sister was, gay. And Jessica was raised by a pack of women. And she's unbelievably an amazing, self-reliant, moral, decent, upstanding, voting, civic-minded, recycling adult. I don't know how that happened, but these excuses for this man, you know, when you hear Roy Moore, and by the way, from that case in the 1990s, he was removed. He was taken off of that case, and that case was reheard after the plaintiff appealed, and he was removed from the court. And the reason why he was removed from the court is because his Christianity, his version, his Sharia law version. And by the way, when he says things like America should not be ruled by laws, it should be laws of men, it should be ruled by laws of God, which, you know, he repeatedly says. He says this over.
They know what I stand for. I've been in politics for many years as a judge, and I've got a strong support base.
What Moore stands for is what many Republicans in Washington fear, that they will be associated with his controversial views, predominantly rooted in the belief that the only source of law is God.
Yeah, that is the problem. Now, why would you want to be a lawmaker if the only source of law is God? I mean, if you just take that to its natural conclusion. Okay, of course, we do have a separation of church and state in the Constitution, in the First Amendment, because of guys like this. But when you look at a guy like this, you know, I always think the worst of people like this, because basically what they're telling me is there is no need for me to exist. God will do everything. Why did God even bother to create us? Why did he even bother? There's no need for us. All we have to do is, relax, sit back, and enjoy the show. God's going to take care of everything. You don't need democracy. You don't need a legislative body. You don't need the laws to be executed, with equal protection for all. You don't need any of this, right? Because God's going to do it. And in his view, so it just begs the question, why would he even want to be a senator? Why would he want to be somebody who writes law when the law that he thinks ought to apply to all Americans is in the Bible? You know what I mean? I can't even understand what this is about. So when I look at guys who spout this nonsense that men and women are unneeded, unnecessary appendages to the biblical God who's going to do everything all the time for you or for the country or for the world or for the globe, then I just say, I'm sorry, but God created me for a reason. I think you're wrong. Do you know? So I always think the worst of people like that. And then it gets worse. Child molestation. I mean, how much worse can it get than that? It gets worse. So the only thing about Roy Moore is that it's a surprise. Do you know what I mean? That's the only thing. That some people are surprised to learn that the people of Alabama Never heard about this because the Alabama GOP would cover it up to the last day, to the minute, to the day they die. I mean, it doesn't matter when or where or who would accuse a Republican legislator of, molesting a young girl or kissing a young girl or, raping somebody even over the age of consent. You know what I mean? That they would cover it up. I mean, they're like, well, he asked God for forgiveness. That's enough for me. It should not be enough for you because the children have to live with this for the rest of their natural born days, which is why it took them 40 years to actually come forward. And 30 people were interviewed for this Washington Post article. So, and you know what's really creepy? Either the idea that they can't keep their story straight. You either have, this is another thing I tweeted last night. I don't know what their excuse is. I'm not sure what they're relying on here to excuse Roy Moore from having to answer questions. I'm not sure what it is. It's either because all the girls are lying, according to them, right? All the girls are lying, and there are 4 girls in this story. They're all lying. The 30 witnesses that were interviewed by the 3 Washington Post reporters who worked on this story, all these 30 people lied, including the stepfather of the girl who made the rape allegation, or not rape. Well, it's rape if you're 14 because there is no consent at 14, not even in Alabama, where, by the way, the age of consent is 16. Isn't that weird? It's the good old boy network. But anyway, so they're either saying all the girls are lying, or they're saying it's okay because it's in the Bible. And I don't know which is their excuse. I'm not really sure because they are literally pointing to, this is unbelievable, and we had this yesterday, the Alabama state auditor. His name is Jim Ziegler, and he has compared Judge Roy Moore to Jesus. Now remember, Judge Roy Moore has been taken off cases. He's been removed from the bench twice. Both times because he would not apply the law in his state. Okay, both times. One was he refused to allow. He prevented the county clerks from issuing marriage licenses to gay couples after the U.S. Supreme Court ruled that is the federal law because the Constitution provides for equal protection under the law, and that all licenses and stuff that are commonly available to one person is available to another. Okay, and so that's why, and he refused to allow that to happen. And that's when he was finally removed and retired. But the other time he was removed was because he snuck in this 5,000-pound 10 Commandments monument without checking with his other justices that also sat on the Alabama Supreme Court. And, he was sued to have it removed, and he wouldn't remove it even after he was supposed to remove it. And so he was removed from the bench. So here's this guy who doesn't even pass, leave out the fact that he's touching, teenage girls while he's in his mid-30s. I mean, it's just disgusting. And leave out that we're supposed to call them all liars in order to elect him. And leave out that it's okay because it's in the Bible. And by this, I mean what Jim Ziegler said. He said, take Joseph and Mary. Mary was a teenager and Joseph was an adult carpenter, and they became the parents of Jesus. So that's beautiful, isn't it, everybody? That in order to defend Roy Moore, you have to throw Jesus under the bus. Or in my case, well, in your case, you have to throw God under the bus because, you think Jesus is God, right? Don't you? You think Jesus is God if you're Christian. Jesus is God, right? Okay. I think Jesus was king of the Jews. God is God. Just saying. So if I interpret this, that means God is a rapist. That means God raped a 14 or however old Mary was. She was underage. An underage girl in order to have her give birth to a son. I mean, who needs to go there? Alabama. Because they have to now defend the indefensible. It's unbelievable. So they will throw Jesus, they will throw God under the bus. I wait till you hear what some of them said. Wait till you hear this.
For a commercial-free, on-demand, whenever, wherever listening experience. Visit RandiRhodes.com for your personal premium podcast today.
Hey everybody, it's Brett from the Randi Rhodes Show. It's Friday, and that's payday, which doesn't happen without you. I've got a taste of the good life, and now I've got addictions that need to continue. A man's got to eat, and he can't eat without your support. So help Randi support me. Go to RandiRhodes.com/support, and everybody gets fed.
Yeah, you could buy tile at a chain store if you wanted to. You could wait for a kid to try and answer your questions about what's this made of, or how do I install it, or what's in stock. But what if you wanted serious craftsmanship? What if you wanted custom design, handmade, to order from your imagination, or an inspiration photo that you love? Probably you think you can't anymore, but I did. When it was time to shop tile, I came across a family-owned business that still handcrafts each and every individual tile, matching your colors, your inspiration, your design. Tempest Tile Works. They're based in Portland, Oregon, and they still handcraft the most magnificent tile. Let them match to your fabrics or to your countertops or to anything you can envision for your bath or kitchen. Teeny tiny tiles to oversized, their art or yours. It's all doable, it's all affordable, and it's all individually made just for your project. Visit Tempest Tile Works and look at their amazing gallery of designs and styles, and give up the chain stores. Tempest Tile Works, custom made. TempestTileWorks.com.
This is the voice of the resistance. You're listening to the Progressive Voices Network.
Dear fellow progressive, these are the times that try men's souls. It is not the first time our country has been in peril, and it won't be the last. It is, however, a unique threat from within, one the precise likes of which we have never seen before. It is our modern media mix that has enabled an incurious, unserious, pathological liar and textbook narcissist to accede to the highest office in the land. His is a world of make-believe, one that could only have been concocted by a student of reality TV. At least we know he studied something. The imagined slights, the trumped-up, pun intended, feuds, the insulting nicknames, the Twitter diarrhea, it is all of a piece. Entertaining, funny even in another context, but when you're busy blowing up the country's longest-running foreign relationships, devastating the environment, threatening trade wars, and embracing all the wrong actors, it's really hard to find the humor. At Progressive Voices, we take holding the powerful accountable as our most serious mission, and there is nothing more important to us today than making sure the PV audience is informed with unbiased information, and that more and more people become part of our audience, and therefore are better informed than they can be by relying solely on the mainstream media, which, in so many ways, has shrunk from its duty as the watchdog of democracy. It is our sincere hope that you will help us in this important mission at this most critical hour. Go to progressivevoices.com and make your donation today. Please give whatever you can. Remember, we are a tax-exempt 501c3, meaning that your donations are fully tax-deductible. Thanks for supporting the Progressive Voices Network.
Hi, it's Randi Rhodes. Listen to me on the PV live stream or on demand or both on the PV app. Just go to progressivevoices.com or download the Progressive Voices app.
All things Randi at RandiRhodes.com.
Go for launch.
Speaking truth to power, the Randi Rhodes Show.
You're not even going to believe this. Listen to this.
The reaction has been something to behold. I called these gentlemen, mostly gentlemen, because I thought that they might be interestingly certain that these allegations are false. But what I heard from them was that not only do they believe that the allegations are false, but they would continue, at least a couple of them, would continue to support Roy Moore even if the allegations were true. They explicitly told me that they would vote for a child molesting Republican over a Democrat. And so it's really something to hear, and I think it speaks to the level of partisanship on the Republican side of the ledger.
They would vote for a child molesting Republican over, oh yeah, one of those liberal anti-child molesting candidates, over one of those liberal anti-child molesting, anti-Ku Klux Klan prosecutors, which is what Doug Jones is, somebody that prosecuted Eric Rudolph for terrorism. Yeah, they would pick a child molester over a prosecutor who applies the law and brings people in a cold case who murdered 4 little girls in a 16th Street Baptist church to justice. They would pick Roy Moore even if the child molesting allegations are true. Alabama, you got to secede from the union. We have nothing in common. I'm sorry, but we have to break up. I have nothing in common with you if that, you know, I mean, they are actually saying things like there is nothing immoral or illegal here. Maybe it's just a little bit unusual. It's immoral and it is illegal and it's way more than a little bit unusual. Unless it's usual for you that all Republicans molest little girls. And I can't figure that out yet. Because it does seem that the state will sit on information like this. And it's not until this person runs for national office when the national media gets involved and starts, investigating claims that they find out that, yeah, he did molest a whole bunch of teenage girls. And by the way, there were 30 people that were willing to go on the record, put their names to this story, and go public with it. Alabama Bibb County Republican Chairman Jerry Powell says he'd vote for Roy Moore even if Roy Moore did commit sex crimes against a little girl, rather than vote for a Democratic candidate. He said, I'm not saying I support what he did, but I would vote for him over a Democrat. Oh, right. Yeah. Child molestation is something that you can overlook, but it's not, because it's not as bad as the Children's Health Insurance Program, because it's not as bad as evil Obamacare. Oh, my God. I'm serious. This is why I say that this is a scandal from Alabama, but not in Alabama.
Daniel, have you found anyone willing to criticize Moore?
I have not. I had a couple people criticize him in passing in the course of telling me they still supported him. One man said, well, my grandma used to say, someone who does something like that should be, taken behind the house and given a good whooping, and then told me why he would still vote for Roy Moore over Doug Jones. So I didn't find anyone of the 8 people, county chairmen and county chairwomen, who would tell me that they would no longer support Roy Moore even if these allegations were proven true.
You said the county chairman and county chairwomen, the local politicians there, are still willing to support him. What are the reasons they're giving you?
Well, they're telling me that the Democratic Party is still worse. They're telling me that this was likely a Democratic setup, that Democrats planted the story to embarrass Roy Moore. This is the Democratic playbook. One of them told me, well, this wasn't forcible rape. He was just with an underage woman, underage girl, really, something to behold. I had someone say, well, it was 40 years ago, he was 32, she was supposedly 14, that was the direct quote, supposedly 14, and she just said that they kissed, which is not in fact true. That's not just what she said. So really, in a number of ways, finding ways to justify to themselves why they could and should still support this man.
Oh my God. And what this girl actually said, just for your edification, is that she he picked her up. Her mother and her were sitting on a bench outside the courthouse in 1979. The Washington Post even went and looked at the court calendar for that day in 1979 to see whether or not they were at the courthouse, if they had business in front of the court that day. And sure as anything, they found that, yes, this mother was getting divorced and her divorce hearing was that day. And she was outside with her daughter, and Roy Moore approached. And he asked her what she was doing there, and she said, well, I'm here for my divorce, and blah. And he goes, well, don't bring your daughter in there. You don't want her to hear all that stuff, do you? I'll sit with her. I'll stay with her. And she thought, oh, what a nice, good Samaritan. Oh, Jesus. And so she left the daughter with Roy Moore on the bench, and then Roy Moore asked this 14-year-old for her phone number. He called her. She was kind of like excited that an older man had a car and he was going to take her somewhere. And she got in the car, and he drove about 30 miles to his wooded home with her. And she said she started getting really scared in the car. The more he drove, the further into the woods he got. The more afraid she became. He took her into the house. He took her clothes off. He took his clothes off. He touched her over her bra and panties, and then he guided her hand to his erect penis. And the exact quote in the Washington Post is, "I just thought to myself, please let this be over with, whatever this is, as soon as possible." And then when he was done, she said, "Please take me home." And he did. Okay? And this is what he continued to do with 17 and 18-year-old girls. And so they say, oh, the other girls, they weren't teenagers. They were 17 and 18. So, age of consent. But all these other girls said it was all unwanted touching too. But that's, not in their vocabulary, unwanted touching. So they're sitting there telling themselves that they would rather vote for a sexual assault. Well, when they excused Trump, the Republicans started down this slippery slope, and I hate to tell you what the slope is covered in here. Use your imagination. This is unbelievable. And let me tell you what some of the other people in this state have said. The Alabama Marion County GOP chair, David Hall, he told this reporter that you were listening to just now, that's Daniel Dale. He is a reporter for the Toronto Star. He said, well, Korfman, this girl, Korfman, she may have tried to, but we're talking something that somebody said happened 40 years ago. It wouldn't affect whether or not I'd vote for him. So, God forbid your daughter was raped 40 years ago and she didn't come to grips with it or tell you about it until now. So what happened 40 years ago it doesn't matter to your dad. It doesn't matter because your daughter took so long to come to you and tell you, this happened to me when I was little. Okay, great. I would vote for Judge Moore because I wouldn't want to vote for Doug, Hall said, referring to Doug Jones. I'm not saying I support what he did, but even if it's true, I would vote for him. Okay. Jim Ziegler, I told you, he said Zachariah was extremely old to marry Elizabeth, and they became parents of John the Baptist. There's just nothing immoral or illegal here. Maybe just a little unusual. Because it's in the Bible. Roy Moore can do this to 14-year-old girls who aren't able to give consent. Okay, because it's in the Bible. These are the same people in Alabama. The same ones who wanted a bathroom bill because they were so afraid for their daughter's safety. They were so afraid that their daughters would be, some pedophile would go into the same-sex bathroom or something like this, dressed as a woman, right? And really be a man. And they would be pedophiles, and they would, molest their precious daughters. But when the precious daughters come forward and say, yes, this happened, and I really hadn't thought about this guy in so many years, but now that he's running his faces all over the TV, and I go, oh my God, I remember this guy, because they never paid attention to the Alabama Supreme Court. How many people can name their state Supreme Court members? Right. But you know who's running for the Senate right now in a special election that's going to be held on December 12th because this is the height of the season and his ads are all over the stinking TV. And you look at him, you go, I know that guy. Henry Hartzell, who represents Coleman County, suspects the timing of the story. He said the idea that accusations like this would stop his campaign is ludicrous. If this was a habit, like you've read with Bill Cosby, and millions of dollars to settle cases and years of witnesses, that would be one thing. You can't tell me there hasn't been an opportunity through the years to make these accusations with as many times as he's run for office and been in the news. He wants these women to take a polygraph test. He thinks this is the way that you would figure out who's lying and who's not. I don't know if they're up for it, if these girls are, these women who are now grown women are up for it, but if they are, come on, let's do it. This is disgusting. Nobody's paid attention to Roy Moore for a really long time because Roy Moore has been a local figure on the Supreme Court in the state. And now his ads are all over the TV. Anyway, when they asked him about Mitch McConnell And Arizona Senator John McCain, he said, they are two of the biggest goobers we have in Washington, D.C., Henry said. Even U.S. Senator Richard Shelby was a coward with his comments. He's not going to like Roy Moore because Shelby was a Democrat for a long time. Everyone close to the establishment is going to love this. I don't know what that means. He said he believes Moore's accusers have been stoked by the Democratic Party and that they were paid actual money to say this. He said, I'm not buying it. It's too easy for someone to make these accusations. It's too easy. I want to talk to all the women in this audience, especially the 1 out of 4. Yeah. How easy is it for you? Was it easy for you to come forward? Was it easy? Is it easy? Have you still not come forward? I mean, is it easy for you? Because I'll tell you, it's not easy. The state chair of the Alabama GOP, I think it's just a bunch of bull. Mitch McConnell should know better to make a statement like he made unless he gets all the answers. We're right in the political zone right now. The election's December 12th. This is the same campaign issue the left ran against Donald Trump. They're doing the same thing against Roy Moore. Donald Trump was caught on tape saying he assaults women. You just didn't give a rat's ass that he assaults women. And when 15 women came forward saying he assaulted them and put their names to it and went on TV, and some reservos actually followed through with a lawsuit, Donald Trump called them all a liar, and that's what you're doing to these women too. He said, I suggest the women take a polygraph. Maybe she just needs to take a polygraph test and let the people who are pushing her, they need to take the same test too. Let's see if they're telling the truth. Alabama State Representative Ed Henry. I believe it's very opportunistic and they're just looking for their chance to get on some liberal talk show. Meanwhile, Roy Moore was on with Sean Hannity like 10 minutes ago. Literally denying it. So I would have asked their mothers for permission. That's what I would have asked their mothers for permission. One of the mothers who was asked her permission actually gave her permission because he was a catch. And this girl's mother allowed Roy Moore to touch the teenage daughter. Like I said, it's a scandal from Alabama, not in Alabama. When he was asked about Mitch McConnell's comments, he said, and this is the chair of the GOP in Alabama, Mitch McConnell, and you can quote me on this, is a dumbass, coward, liar himself, and exactly what's wrong in Washington, D.C. He would love for Roy Moore not to be in Washington. He'd much rather have a Democrat. Mitch McConnell is scum. How very Christian of you. Little judgy for a Christian, don't you think? A little judgy. Scum? Dumbass? Goober? Little judgy. Then he says, they got some pictures? That'll do. Like 14-year-olds were carrying Polaroid land cameras with them back in 1979 for when the molester came along? Seriously? You can't sit on something like this for 30-something years with a man as in the spotlight as Roy Moore, and all of a sudden 3 weeks before a senatorial primate, all of a sudden these 3 or 4 women are going to talk about something in 1979. I call bull. It's as fabricated as the day is long. Secretary of State John Merrill. These allegations have been made against Judge Moore, but at this time, that's all they are. They're allegations. People will say and do anything. You and I both know they will. These girls are not political. In fact, they're Republicans.
Clear for takeoff. The Randi Rhodes Air Force. Air Force. RandiRhodes.com.
Hey, I need to tell you something about Herky Jerky because over the past year, you've been asking me to ask Jason from Herky Jerky if they will ever produce a turkey jerky. Well, I'm proud to tell you that he says absolutely yes. And not only does he have it now, it's absolutely spectacular. Let me start with the taste. It is extremely soft and slightly sweet, and it's bite-sized pieces that taste just like the homemade oven-roasted turkey that you have on Thanksgiving. It's made from turkeys raised without added hormones and just the right amount of salt, natural smoke flavoring, and spices that will make your taste buds go wild. and you asked for healthy. Well, Herky Jerky Turkey Jerky has no nitrates, preservatives, MSG, or artificial ingredients, absolutely zero fat, and packs a whopping 11 grams of protein per serving, and very low in cholesterol. Quite simply, I think this is one of the healthiest and best tasting high protein snacks you can get. And for the whole month of November, $5 off any turkey jerky pack you desire. $5 off, just use promo code TURKEY. They don't sell the little dinky bags that you get at the gas station. They're 14-ounce zip-sealed packs, and they're meant to last. Herky Jerky, making quality jerky and meat snacks for almost 25 years. Gotta tell you, I believe this is as good as anything I've ever tasted and the best thing they've ever produced. Try some today, herkyjerky.com.
Hello, Progressive Voices tune-in listeners. I'm Casey Hobbs.
And I'm Shane Mason, and we're the hosts of Nurse Talk Radio.
Here's what we're talking about this week. We're talking about the recent wine country fires that raged through California's Napa and Sonoma counties in early October, leaving over 6,700 homes destroyed.
Thousands of lives changed in an instant. The uprooting of many seniors who are either living in assisted living, retirement homes, or nursing homes that were either damaged or destroyed by the fires.
Parents may have been brought into their children's home because their home actually burned down and they're staying with them. Boom, instant caregiver. People become instant caregivers every day when their parent has a stroke or something happens in the hospital, discharges them and says, hi, you're now an instant caregiver. There's that conflict and that guilt. You love them, but you want your life back. And that's perfectly normal to feel like that. So I'm encouraging people to have a conversation with their loved one, set some realistic expectations in the house. If you want your mom to stay with you forever, start talking about sharing expenses. If you think your mom should move to an assisted living or to an independent living or just her own apartment, have that conversation and plan a date for when that's going to happen and what that's going to look like. And families are terrible at having these conversations.
Yeah.
And they have such a hard time making these plans because they feel like they're hurting their parents' feelings. But avoidance of conflict just creates more conflict. That's what I've seen. So
very
be
true.
Brave and start it. Throughout the U.S., you can go to the website that has care managers who can help have this conversation regardless of the circumstances, and that's aginglifecare.org. Do not go it alone. Get some expert advice.
Check out our show at nursetalksite.com and listen every Saturday and Sunday right here on Progressive Voices.
The Randi Rhodes Show is live on RandiRhodes.com and the free Progressive Voices app for Android and iOS. Visit the App Store or ProgressiveVoices.com now.
I know, and this goes back to what you said. Do people do it for money? Do they do it for political reasons? How is that more common than people would think?
Oh, definitely. I mean, they'll do this for
they will lie to make money.
Oh, undoubtedly. I mean, there are individuals that will come forward with these outrageous allegations, and then
that hurts all women that are victims.
Yes, I mean, and that's what I used to work in sex crimes in the DA's office. It was very pitiful to see that because some jurors don't believe it because they've in their own lives. There are people that have made these accusations for money. You see this time and time again. And sexual harassment, that term is coined everywhere. Frankly, the laws are very clear as to what it takes in order to be a violation of the law. You have to have some sort of damage. And these individuals, a lot of these women, it's all about money, and they bank on the fact that these corporations have
this is where you thread the needle, because there are women that are victims of predators.
Yes, there are. There are.
So hard.
But very few, far between.
Very few and far between. 1 in 4 women in this country have been raped. Very few and far between, his legal expert says. Let me just read these names and see if they, trigger anything in your brain. Andrea Macris, Juliette Huddy, Rebecca Gomez Diamond, Lori Dew, Perkita Burgess, Rachel Whitlib Bernstein, Andrea Tanteros, Wendy Walsh, Liz Wheel. Yeah, they all successfully sued Bill O'Reilly for sexual... The nerve of them to sit on this TV channel. Roger Ailes, I mean, to sit on his little channel there and to tell people, oh, it's very few and far between. Women do this all the time for money. They do this all the time for money. It's just unbelievable what they will peddle on that channel. It's just
And I want to get into the deal with Roy Moore, because this broke as well today. He's the Senate candidate. He's the, he bested Luther Strange in that Jeff Sessions seat runoff. He is a Christian conservative. He's a firebrand, former Supreme Court judge in Alabama. And now this allegation comes 38, 39 years ago that he had a sexual encounter with a 14-year-old girl. He claims this is a hit job. This is the Clinton machine or someone smearing him. What is your take on this at this point in this story?
Well, I guess I'd like to hear his response more than just that it's fake news. I think we ought to give him 24 or 48 hours to respond and see where it goes. I mean, I'm sort of frustrated all around with that Alabama primary. What was the matter with Mo Brooks?
That's who I liked.
Yeah, me too. We both endorsed him. Yeah, he's been in the House all this time. He's fantastic on immigration, the one issue that matters. Why did it have to be between establishmentarian Luther Strange, who will open borders, or Roy Moore? So I'm frustrated from the beginning on that. As for, if you haven't read the Washington Post article, to the viewers, they will be talking about how there are all these women coming forward. No, there's one. There is one allegation.
There's four.
Of a woman. I mean, yes, he dated girls who were 17, 19 when he was 30. We might find that a little creepy today, but this was nearly 50 years ago. The one serious allegation is a woman, at the time, she was 14 years old, who claims, actual molestation. And who knows? I'd like to see what his response is. But you can't help thinking about the timing here, Laura.
Here's the thing. Let's say all these girls are lying. They're all Republicans. They voted for Donald Trump. They're not particularly political. They didn't want to really throw themselves into the limelight. This is not anything they wanted to do. Let's just say that they're all lying. Why would you back Judge Roy Moore, who literally, as a circuit court judge, who was removed from a case that he was hearing by the Alabama Court of Appeals, because he wrote that a woman should be separated from her children because the Bible believes homosexuality is a sin. And she had sex with another woman, or at least was, with another woman. And because of that, she should not have custody or visitation with her children unsupervised, to treat her like a sex offender. Okay? I mean, this is unbelievable. He literally, the defense attorney for this woman had petitioned the court because they said he was unable to render an impartial decision because of his Christian beliefs, which were beyond what the Constitution allows, okay, as far as, the laws of man are the ones that rule in his courtroom, not the laws of the Bible, and that he, because of his extreme fundamentalist religious faith, had a strong preconceived opinion of the plaintiff, of her sexual orientation, which would not leave the court's mind perfectly open to conviction and would render the court unable to exercise his functions impartially in this particular case. The appeals court heard that objection and did remove Roy Moore for those reasons. And that was in the 1990s. That was before he was on the Supreme Court, where he was removed twice because he puts his belief system above the Constitution, the written law of this country. Now, when the Court of Appeals said he had to recuse himself, he denied the motion to recuse. And he issued a temporary ruling. And he gave the father of this family, he gave the father custody of the two young children, ordered the mother to pay $126 a week in child support, and barred Ms. Borden from visiting her children unsupervised overnight or while she was in the presence of her partner. And he wrote, quote, The court strongly feels that the minor children will be detrimentally affected by the present lifestyle of Mrs. Borden, who has engaged in a homosexual relationship during her marriage, forbidden by the laws of the state of Alabama and the laws of nature. He actually said, this goes to show that this is evil. This behavior is wrong and of Satan. As you know, homosexuality is against the law. Murder is against the law. I don't recuse for every criminal that comes up. And I am not comparing criminality with this conduct. But if someone that commits a murder comes up before my court, I'm not going to recuse them. Makes no sense, because that's against what I believe, and it's also against the law. Homosexuality is against the law. I can't recuse myself because homosexuality is against the law. Dean Young, who is Roy Moore's longtime political ally down there in Alabama, said to the gay community in Alabama, either you get your lives straight or get back in the closet where you came from. He said that at a courthouse rally to preserve Roy Moore on this case. The Court of Appeals sided with Ms. Borden and took Roy Moore off the case. Roy Moore appealed it to the Supreme Court. In Alabama, homosexuality is wrong, said Moore's lawyer Stuart Roth. Whether a judge is a Christian or a Jew or a Muslim or an atheist breaking the law is a factor. 1997, they're going through all this for years, okay, this family. 1997, the Alabama Supreme Court ordered the case be reheard without Judge Moore. It was assigned to a different judge in that same county where all this stuff that Roy Moore is being accused of now happened, Etowah County, and the circuit court judge there, William Rea, closed the trial to the public immediately, took the case from Judge Roy Moore, and said this case is only about the interests of the children. And said, I think he abused the law for his own advantage. He doesn't follow the law if it suits him not to. Judge Roy Moore got so upset with the Alabama Supreme Court decision that Judge Roy Moore actually ran for the Alabama Supreme Court, got himself elected to the Alabama Supreme Court, and then put the Ten Commandments, and was removed from the bench on the Alabama Supreme Court. And then Alabama reelected him. They put him back into the Supreme Court. And then he refused to uphold the law as the Supreme Court decided that the law of the land is gay marriage. The law of the land is that everybody can apply for a marriage license. And Roy Moore refused to allow anybody to issue a marriage license in Alabama. And Judge Roy Moore was again removed from the Alabama Supreme Court. 2 times he's been removed from the court. You know how hard it is to remove a Supreme Court justice? I mean, if it was easy, Clarence Thomas, we would get him out of there. Because poor Anita Hill. You know, they were talking to her last night on CNN. Poor Anita Hill, who actually testified in front of the Senate during the confirmation hearing of one Judge Clarence Thomas that he sexually assaulted her, that he was talking about pubic hairs on a can of Coke, and Long John Silver was one of his favorite porn movies, and maybe she should come over and watch it with. And that fell on deaf ears, okay? Because Republicans aren't really Christian. You know, for a really long time, I thought evangelicals think differently than I do. But you know what? They believe what they believe, and you should not question them. And I've told this audience that a million times, that I don't care what your religion is. I really don't care if you have no religion or if your religion is this or that. You know, everybody should live and let live, and whatever gets you through the day and whatever you need to do to make this life bearable for you when it's, you know, it hands you, the worst possible situation. Maybe you get a bad diagnosis or somebody you love has been suddenly taken, car crash or a gunshot wound. You do what you need to do. You do what you need to do to get you through this. And I don't care what it is. And if it's praying, then do it. And if it's not praying, but it's, trying to understand how to change the law and taking some action, then that's what you do. And for me, it's personal, it's individual. This country celebrates whatever way you get through it. And so do I. But, I got to tell you, there is something so undeniably evil about these evangelical Christians who are so fundamentalist, who are so into Sharia law in this country, who want to take away my freedom of religion, want to take away my freedom to worship or not to, want to take away my method of getting through whatever this life is throwing me, in favor of evangelizing me to believe exactly what they believe, and that is that old men can have sex with young women because it's in the Bible, or that God had sex with an underage girl in such a way that it was physical, and that's why Roy Moore doesn't think it's offensive, because it gave gave the world Jesus Christ. I mean, they will throw anybody under the bus, including God. And, for me, that's not a religion anymore. That's a cult. That's a cult. When Donald Trump told you from his own mouth that he was a repetitive sexual assaulter, and that the thing that he does to accommodate the women he assaults is to pop Tic Tacs so that his foul breath of Satan isn't, objectionable to the girls that he's grabbing uninvited by the genitalia, somehow shows he cares, and you voted for him anyway. You gave up the right to call yourself religious, and you became a cult member. And what's really creepy is 53% of white women voted for him, and 71% of these evangelicals are so deep in this cult that they voted for him, even though they had photographic evidence, recorded words of that man saying that he sinned against women repeatedly and without remorse, and then on the back end called all those women liars. I'm sorry, that's not a religion anymore. That is a cult. That is truly not religion. And I couldn't care less if you have religion or if you don't have religion. What works for me might not work for you. And if it works for you, I typically tell you, it's fine with this show. It's fine with, most people that vote the way I do, that you do whatever. Nobody has a problem with it until it crosses into cult territory. And if you find yourself excusing behavior like this, uninvited sexual touching, I don't care if she's 30. I don't care. I mean, it's just vile if it's a 14-year-old. It's just, that's pedophilia. Has another name. But even the 16-year-old, the 18-year-old, even the one whose mother gave permission, you can't give permission if the girl herself says this was unwanted. A second person can't. If my mother said it's okay to, touch my daughter, and I said, no, it's not, the answer is no. The answer is no. But this is why I'm telling you, this is a problem from Alabama, but it ain't a problem in Alabama. And in that case, even though I love Mobile, I think it's a great city by the bay. I think it's just beautiful. I lived in Fairhope. I worked at Mobile for a good long time. But you've got to go, we have nothing in common. Because we live by the Constitution. We live by equal justice under law. We live by no is no. We live by consent is consent, and if none is given, it's sexual assault. Okay? We live with equal justice under law for all people. We have nothing in common.
The Randi Rhodes Air Force. The Randi Rhodes Show is live on RandiRhodes.com and the free Progressive Voices app for Android and iOS. Visit the App Store or ProgressiveVoices.com now.
Now, the top of the hour on the Progressive Voices channel on TuneIn presents the Green News Report.
It's a move that would leave the U.S. completely isolated when it comes to the question of climate change.
Syria joins UN Paris climate agreement, leaving U.S. alone in climate denial.
Our businesses want people to know in the global community that the Trump administration doesn't speak for them.
But U.S. cities, states, and businesses are picking up the slack. Tuesday's election may result in a big blue wall of climate action on the U.S. West Coast. Plus,
there's no good squabbling over who is responsible or who should pay. Each country has to contribute.
The ozone hole is now the smallest on record, thanks to a global climate treaty.
All of those stories and more straight ahead from BradBlog.com. I'm Brad Friedman.
And I'm Desi Doyen.
Stand by for 6 minutes of independent green news, politics, analysis, and snarky comment.
The development comes as France confirms it has not invited the U.S. president to a climate summit in December.
I guess the bromance between Donald Trump and French President Emmanuel Macron is fini. This is your Green News Report. Okay, Desi Doyen, the big off-year election on Tuesday wasn't just good news for Democrats. It might actually turn out to be good news for the planet.
Yes, indeed. Election Day on Tuesday was a victory for a very diverse slate of pro-environment progressive candidates winning state and local offices around the country, particularly in Washington state, where Democrats won a special election, now giving them majorities in both state chambers, joining California and Oregon as states with both a Democratic governor and Democratic majorities in both houses. A big blue wall in the West that could be good news for state-level climate action. Seattle Times reports that Washington's Democratic Governor Jay Inslee now plans an ambitious climate agenda.
He will now be able to do that because that agenda had been blocked by a one-seat Republican majority in the state Senate, and that's over, all the way from the Canadian border down to Mexico on the West Coast.
And then there was one. At the latest round of United Nations climate talks now underway in Bonn, Germany, Syria announced it will sign on to the Paris Climate Agreement to reduce carbon emissions, leaving the United States as the only nation on the planet to reject the accord, after U.S. President Donald Trump announced his intention to withdraw the United States in 2019. Further isolating Trump, France has announced it is not inviting the U.S. president to a climate summit in Paris in December.
Aw, sad.
But UN observers say China seems to be delighted to take over the leadership position.
Of course they are. So much winning.
At the same time, a coalition of U.S. governors, mayors, and CEOs are also now at the climate talks in Bonn as part of the We Are Still In coalition. Coalition member and Massachusetts State Representative Jennifer Benson, in an interview with WGBH Boston, says their goal is to show that the U.S. is making progress in spite of the administration.
We can go and show the world that, yes, we are still engaged. We're still in this fight. We believe this is an issue. And even if we have to do it on a state-by-state basis, we're still going to continue to work.
Meanwhile, President Trump himself is in Asia, and in a formal address to the South Korean parliament, he cited lack of electricity to criticize the North Korean regime's failure to provide for its people.
Families live in homes without plumbing, and fewer than half have electricity.
I think I see where you're going here.
Yeah, that's still more than families get in Puerto Rico as of Thursday. 7 weeks after Hurricane Maria hit the U.S. island territory, 60% of Puerto Ricans still lack electricity. But in better news, 85% of Puerto Ricans now have access to clean drinking water. But a boil water advisory remains in effect for the entire island. Puerto Rico's Bankruptcy Oversight Board has asked Congress this week for $21 billion in aid to fund basic government services. In Texas, in the wake of Hurricane Harvey, officials have asked Congress this week for funding to buy out thousands of the area's most flood-prone properties, the largest home buyout in U.S. history. But it might be a tough sell with Republicans focused on their $1.5 trillion tax cut bill. Finally, some good news. NASA has announced this week that the Earth's ozone hole this year shrunk to the smallest annual size on record since 1988. That was thanks to the world's first global climate treaty, the Montreal Protocol, which phased out the use of man-made chemicals that were destroying the planet's protective ozone layer. That was led by conservatives President Ronald Reagan and British Prime Minister Margaret Thatcher, and shows that the world can join together to solve problems and succeed.
Yes, global treaties work, unless we just pretend that they don't. For much more on all of those stories and the ones we couldn't get to today, please check out our website at greennews.bradblog.com. Don't forget you can download our reports anytime via Stitcher, TuneIn, or iTunes. Find us, follow us, and share us worldwide on the Facebooks and the Twitters at Green News Report. I'm Brad Friedman.
And I'm Desi Doyen.
And this has been your Green News Report.
Please help Progressive Voices support the Green News Report by stopping by bradblog.com/donate.
Mary had a little man. The fault. We believe that all men are created equal.
To the magnificent mosaic that is America.
From Radio Beacon to Radio Beacon.
I have a dream today.
Change has come to America.
Believe it. Knock, knock. Who's there?
Hey! It's a figment of your imagination.
Randi Rhodes Show.
Turn up your mind.
When I asked, what does he believe that the motivation is for these women coming forward and making the accusations that they have? Again, Jerry Moore says that it's money and the Democratic Party, implying that they are doing this because they're being paid in some way and that it is for the purpose of derailing or interrupting this campaign. He says it's because his brother has been leading so far in double digits. And he also says he knows that they are not telling the truth and that these women are going to, as he put it, have to answer to God for these false allegations. And he also portrays that his brother is being persecuted, in his own words, like Jesus Christ was. And he expects that the voters here and those that know Roy Moore are going to be outraged. I meant, well, outraged by the allegations. And he said, no, outraged that anyone would even think that Roy Moore would be capable of doing what he's been accused of by these women. So very defiant, very outspoken, relying heavily on his faith and defending his brother to the hilt.
Wow. These women are going to have to answer to God. This is crazy. And the Democrats did it. Yeah, I got to tell you something. Democrats don't accuse other people of being pedophiles unless they have evidence that somebody is a pedophile. But this is very typical Republican behavior, I have to say. This is what they called Hillary Clinton. Remember? This is not the case of Donald Trump getting caught on tapes admitting with his own mouth that he is a serial sexual assaulter, which is what he said in that Access Hollywood tape, that he just can't control himself. He just can't stop kissing them. And, they'll let you do anything. They'll even let you grab them by the, when you're a star, they'll let you do anything, right? I mean, that's what Trump admitted to being, a sexual assaulter, a serial sexual assaulter. But the Republicans, they were the ones who accused Hillary Clinton of running a pedophile ring out of a pizza place. This is their MO. So if anybody is doing this, trust me, it ain't the Democrats. Democrats don't go down this ugly road unless somebody actually is a provable pedophile. I can imagine Mitch McConnell doing this. I really can. But then again, you would have to believe that all 30 people who spoke to the Washington Post were liars. And I can't get there. But the idea that Mitch McConnell found these women or got a tip that these women existed and then pushed out this story, that ain't lost on me. This doesn't have audio. This is a video only. So if you can look at it, it's not very long because it had no audio and I didn't want to screw up your podcast. But if you look at Mitch McConnell's face here, he's being asked about Roy Moore and the accusations. He is so self-satisfied. He is so freaking pleased with his damn self.
Senator McConnell, do you believe the women who made these accusations against Roy Moore?
Look at that face. Look at that. He's laughing.
On the record accusations against Roy Moore, sir? Thank you, folks. Let's go, guys. Thank you.
Goodbye, everybody. I mean, but he's so self-satisfied. He's got this look on his face like, because I believe there is a civil war in the Republican Party. Oh, that's for sure. And it is between the Steve Bannons, who picked this guy, Roy Moore, and the Mitch McConnells, who were promoting and spending millions of dollars promoting Luther Strange. There is an all-out war between these two men. Now, of course, in order to believe that this wasn't a legitimate story to be put in the press, I believe if anybody put it in the press, it was Mitch McConnell. But it has to be a true story because I can't imagine 30 women lying in repeated interviews, and their mothers lying, and their fathers lying, and their friends from this small town. I mean, here's what you'd have to believe. You would have to believe that 30 women from this small county in Alabama, where Judge Roy Moore was the circuit court judge, was the prosecutor, was, you know, the enforcer of the law, right? That all these 30 women in this small little county all lied about Judge Roy Moore. That's what you'd have to believe. And there's just no way that I can believe that. But here's Bannon.
But it's interesting. The Bezos, Amazon, Washington Post.
No, you're wrong.
That dropped that dime on Donald Trump is the same Bezos, Amazon, Washington Post that dropped the dime this afternoon on Judge Roy Moore.
Okay, nobody dropped a dime on Donald Trump. Donald Trump actually said he was a serial sexual molester, actually said that he touches women uninvited and without consent, actually said that he can't stop kissing them. He doesn't even wait to ask, actually said he moved on Nancy O'Dell like a bitch. That's what he said. He said you could grab them by the P word. When you're a star, they'll let you do anything. And that he doesn't even wait. He just moves on them. He just pops TikTok because he doesn't even wait to start kissing them. He doesn't even ask them. So no one dropped a dime on your precious asshole president, Bannon. This is a bad argument you're making. I tried to help you out last night. I really did. I tweeted to you. I tweeted at Breitbart. I tweeted at Senate Leader McConnell. I tried to tell everybody that this is between the brothers, Kay. This is between McConnell and Bannon. The Democrats have nothing to do with this, and no one dropped a dime on Donald Trump.
Now, is that a coincidence? That's what I mean when I say opposition party, right? It's purely part of the apparatus of the Democratic Party. They don't make any bones about it.
Oh, sometimes you're just too slick, okay? And you miss your own bullshit. You just slide on it. And that's what happened. You're on that slippery slope and it's covered in bullshit and you just took a fall is what happened to you. Because this is coming from McConnell. And then I was tweeting like crazy last night trying to get them to take the bait. And then all of a sudden this morning, Bannon's like, yeah, this is Mitch McConnell. Well, you're welcome. The more you go at each other, the happier I am. You know, when your opponent is destroying themselves, you're supposed to say nothing. But I had to throw a little gas on that fire because he was wrong. He's wrong. Democrats do not accuse people of being pedophiles unless they are. And then we accuse them in court with evidence and stuff. Let me just show you the Republican Hall of Fame, okay? Let me just show you the hypocrisy of the Bible-thumping Republican Party, all right? You remember Larry Craig, the Idaho senator? He supported the federal marriage amendment restricting marriage to one man and one woman. He supported Idaho's proposed ban on same-sex marriage. He was married to a woman with 3 children from a former marriage. And then in June of 2007, Larry Craig was arrested in the Minneapolis-St. Paul International Airport bathroom for soliciting sex with the guy in the next stall. Bob Allen from Florida. He's a former state representative here in Florida. He consistently voted against gay rights in the Florida legislature. He supported Florida's ban on same-sex adoption, which, by the way, I had to tangle with. And he resigned in 2007 after being arrested in an undercover sting by a police officer who he paid $20 for the pleasure of blowing him in the men's room. His defense was that he handed this black man, this black police officer, $20 to avoid becoming a statistic. He was afraid the black man was going to hurt him, so he gave him $20 to go away and then sucked him off. Yeah. George Reckers, everybody remember him? Baptist minister, uber Bible thumper, also a psychologist who was called to be a witness expert at many, many trials. And he actually is the founder of the most virulent anti-gay Family Research Council. Yeah. Passionate supporter of conversion therapy for gays. Highly paid expert witness on the issue of conversion therapy being the answer for gayness. And of course, later we found out that conversion therapy was responsible for more suicides than you could probably process in your head. Anyway, he was married. He had children. In 2010, he was photographed coming back from his European vacation with a male prostitute. The prostitute told the media that Mr. Reckers liked to be rubbed down there and specified that he really liked light anal licking. His defense was, I only hired him to carry my luggage. Richard Curtis, Washington state rep. He voted against including LGBT folks in the state's discrimination statutes. He voted against domestic partnership rights for same-sex people married with children. Resigned in 2007 when the Spokane Spokesman Review reported on his motel room tryst with a gay male prostitute who he met in an adult bookstore where he visited frequently wearing women's clothes. Roy Ashburn, a Republican state senator from California, voted against every gay rights measure ever placed before the state Senate. He's divorced, has children. He was busted in 2010 for a DUI after driving away from a Sacramento gay bar with a male companion. He at least seized the opportunity to come out as gay, and he still serves in the state legislature. Ed Schrock, another Bible Belt Republican congressman from Virginia. He co-sponsored the federal marriage amendment. He opposes any and all anti-discrimination rights for LGBT people, including discrimination in employment. He thinks he should be able to. He opposed ending Don't Ask, Don't Tell, married with a child. 2004, running for his third congressional term, caught on tape soliciting sex on a gay sex phone line. Our congressman, what's his face? Just popped into my head. Who was trolling for gay pages? Remember? Mark Foley. Another Republican congressman from Florida was, hitting up on underage Republican Senate House pages. And what's really funny is that when you have somebody who's sexting or texting with an underage girl, like Anthony Weiner, somehow the Democrats managed to not support him, and he just reported for prison. Why is that? Why is that when Democrats actually are guilty of, some illegal behavior with minors or illegal behavior, with photographing their genitalia and sending it out to the free world, our guys end up, in jail. Their guys end up getting reelected or saying, I hired him to carry my luggage. Now, here's another example. And I'm not, this isn't forgiveness because, Weiner just reported for jail this week. Louis C.K., you remember yesterday's story broke that all these 5 women were saying that he kept whipping it out and masturbating in front of them, and they were just like, wow, this is crazy. And they were afraid to say anything because they were also in comedy, and they thought it would ruin their careers. Today, he issued a statement saying these stories are true. Wow.
To speak to Randy, call now, you bastards. 561-270-3844.
Hello.
Randi Rhodes. Air Force.
Hey, everybody, it's Brett from the Randi Rhodes Show. It's Friday, and that's payday, which doesn't happen without you. I've got a taste of the good life, and now I've got addictions that need to continue. A man's got to eat, and he can't eat without your support. So help Randy support me. Go to randyrhodes.com/support, and everybody gets fed.
Yeah, you could buy tile at a chain store if you wanted to. You could wait for a kid to try and answer your questions about what's this made of, or how do I install it, or what's in stock. But what if you wanted serious craftsmanship? What if you wanted custom design, handmade, to order from your imagination, or an inspiration photo that you love? Probably you think you can't anymore, but I did. When it was time to shop tile, I came across a family-owned business that still handcrafts each and every individual tile, matching your colors, your inspiration, your design. Tempest Tile Works. They're based in Portland, Oregon, and they still handcraft the most magnificent tile. Let them match to your fabrics or to your countertops or to anything you can envision for your bath or kitchen. Teeny tiny tiles to oversized, their art or yours. It's all doable, it's all affordable, and it's all individually made just for your project. Visit Tempest Tile Works and look at their amazing gallery of designs and styles, and give up the chain stores. Tempest Tile Works, custom made. TempestTileWorks.com.
So let's see. There's still no female president. You make half of what men make, yet somehow you are still expected to take care of most everything at the home too. And ladies, you're beautiful. But on a daily basis, you look in the mirror in disgust at how you look. It is time to start a new routine. And I hope that you will listen to my new show, She Persisted, here on the Progressive Voices Network. My name is Melissa Carter. I will be your host. And I have been a media personality for over 20 years. I also came out on the air long before Ellen did. And as a single mom and a kidney transplant recipient, I have been through some shit. Nevertheless, I persisted. And I know you have too. So let's talk about what we've accomplished. And together, we can learn to take it from she persisted to she thrived. It's She Persisted at 8 a.m. on the East on the Progressive Voices Network and on demand on the Progressive Voices app. I certainly hope you'll join me.
This is Sam from Indivisible. Be part of the resistance. Listen to the Indivisible podcast when you want, on demand at progressivevoices.com or on the PV app. Download the PV app now in the app and Android stores.
Take action and hold Congress accountable. This is Ezra Levin on the Progressive Voices Network, asking you to join the millions who decided to become part of the movement to resist Trump's agenda. Check out indivisibleguide.com to start resisting on your home turf. Keep listening for more ways you can get involved.
Be part of the resistance. Make sure you listen to this week's new Indivisible podcast, available on demand at progressivevoices.com or on the PV app.
This is the voice of the resistance. You're listening to the Progressive Voices Network.
Call in, connect. To speak to Randy, call 561-270-3844. 561-270-3844.
Okay, moments ago.
Allegations are completely false and misleading. But more than that, it hurts me personally because, you know, I'm a father. I have one daughter. I have 5 granddaughters, and I have a special concern for protection of young ladies. This is really hard to get on radio and explain this, and these allegations are just completely false.
What do you make specifically? Let's start with what they talked about, that you had struck up a conversation with this young woman who was 14, Lee Kaufman, and her mother says that you offered to watch the girl while the mother went inside for a custody hearing, which they confirmed it actually happened at that time. Do you know Miss Kaufman? Do you know the mother?
I don't know Miss Kaufman from anybody. I've never talked to her, never had any contact with her. Allegations of sexual misconduct with her are completely false. I believe they're politically motivated. I believe they're brought only to stop a very successful campaign, and that's what they're doing. I've never known this woman or anything.
Okay. He's never known her. Now, this is interesting because Lee Kaufman's mother remembers it, and she's quoted in this article. Lee Kaufman's father remembers it, and he's quoted in this article. Her friends at the time said she told them at the time, and they recall. But, he doesn't know her from anybody.
This woman has waited over 40 years to bring a complaint 4 weeks out of an election. It's obvious to the casual observer that something's up. We're also doing an investigation, and we have some evidence of some collusion here, but we're not ready to put that to the public just yet.
So you are trying to prove your innocence, in other words.
Well, just like you said, they're doing it to defeat the Senate campaign.
Who are they? If they are doing it to defeat the Senate campaign, then you've got 30 people who are lying to the Washington Post, to 3 reporters at the Washington Post, who went down there and spoke to not just these accusers, but to their families, to their friends, to other people who knew Roy Moore's habits of taking girls and driving them to his wooded house and, to his little cabin in the woods. I mean, and by the way, this whole claim that this is a double-digit lead, that, if anybody is doing it, meaning finding people to make allegations, legitimate allegations, obviously, because you can't have 30 people saying, yes, I remember, or yes, she told me, or yes, this and that, yes, that, and the father knows, and the mother knows, and the mother of another girl knows, and the mother of another girl knows, and she said, oh, I actually gave permission for her to date him. And then another girl, you have like 5 people who actually were touched by him. And then you've got their families and their friends who all say that they were told at the time, all saying it. So they would all have to be lying if it's false. But if this was an effort to expose bad behavior by Roy Moore or illegal behavior by Roy Moore, and if this 14-year-old was touched, that's illegal behavior. And if those other girls were touched without their consent, it's still illegal behavior. But if that's true, then I promise you that the Republicans are the ones who put this out there, because they don't want Roy Moore in the Senate. They just don't. Mitch McConnell hates Roy Moore. This did not come from Democrats. Democrats do not accuse people of running pedophile rings in Alabama or any other place like pizza places. We don't do that. It's not our thing. When somebody is actually texting, sexting, or doing something with an underage page or doing something with an underage girl, suddenly there's a perp walk and they report to prison, because we don't protect that. We're not so partisan that, it's okay with us. Only the cult-like members of the GOP in that wing of that party would protect a man who is accused by 30 different, people of doing this, would, defend the person. But just so you know, this race is so close. There was polling that came out, what is today, the 9th or the 10th? Today's the 10th. Yesterday, a poll was released. Opinion Savvy poll on the Alabama Senate special election that's going to happen on December 12th, just a couple of weeks from now. And it's tied. It's all tied up between the prosecutor, Doug Jones. Now, you know what's really interesting? They're going, well, this was 40 years ago and you shouldn't pay any attention. You know what Doug Jones did? He took a really cold case from 1963. Of 4 little girls who were murdered by a bomb in the 16th Street Baptist Church by Klan members. I mean, 63, 73, 83, 93, 2003, 2013. Oh my God, that's 50 some years ago. Why would you even pursue it? It's so long ago. He prosecuted that case successfully after all those years. But somehow, because these girls are now in their 50s and this happened when they were teenagers, we should look the other way. It should, like, oh, it's so long ago and it doesn't matter. This makes no sense. So you are running, Roy Moore is running against somebody who doesn't ever let crime go unpunished, has brought terrorism cases against white supremacists, like Klan members, like Eric Rudolph. This is what is scary to the Republican Party about Doug Jones. Otherwise, you'd have to believe that touching a child is voting for somebody who would do such a thing is better than somebody who wants children's health insurance. I mean, it makes no sense. Kenny in the Bronx.
Kenny and Yonkers. How you doing, Randy?
Oh, hi.
Hey, listen, I just want to say, if you ask me, I have a couple of friends on Facebook who are supposedly Christians, and they're all into this, all bullshit websites and so, to make it, listen, this is all Christian terrorism. All right, they're into the Illuminati. They're always sending me all these bullshit videos. I have to deal with so many different people. I mean, one of the people that I work for, he swears by, oh, did you see Fox News? I mean, I can't stand it anymore. And if you ask me what's going on with this Roy Moore, they're practically giving all these people that are running around with all these weapons and everything. It's like you go out if under the right circumstances, if they do crazy shit, they'll get away with it.
This is the clip that scares me the most about these people, okay? This is a reporter from the Toronto Star who interviewed every big person, in the Alabama GOP, from the GOP state chair to the GOP auditor to the representatives down there in the state legislature, in the state house. And this is what they told him. Now, let this sit for a minute.
The reaction has been something to behold. I called these gentlemen, mostly gentlemen, because I thought that they might be interestingly certain that these allegations are false. But what I heard from them was that not only do they believe that the allegations are false, but they would continue, at least a couple of them, would continue to support Roy Moore even if the allegations were true. They explicitly told me that they would vote for a child molesting Republican over a Democrat. And
there you have it.
Yep.
They would vote for a Republican child molester over a Democrat who wants to give children health insurance. I really, it just blows your mind. The thing that's going on in this country that is so scary and so dangerous, and I see it like, on my Facebook page, believe me, if you go to my Facebook page over this weekend, you'll see it there too, because we're going to post this whole show, and they will go absolutely ballistic, and they will post their stupid memes, and they will, quote Gateway Pundit, which is fake news. They will quote Russian-sourced articles that Alex Jones promotes. InfoWars just got caught promoting 1,000 Russian-sourced news articles as his own. I mean, they are just propagandized to the hilt, and they brainwash these people into believing that Sharia law is okay as long as it's Christian. Do you know what I mean? And they're willing to go down that bad road because they heard it on Fox News or because it showed up in their Twitter news feed or because it is unbelievable. So you have people who would allow for and on the gun issue, like I've been saying all week, and I'll say it again right here, right now. We lost the debate on guns, and I'll tell you exactly when. It was 2012 when those elementary school kids in Sandy Hook were slaughtered, murdered in their classrooms. 6-year-olds, 5-year-olds, kindergartners were murdered. And America decided that dead babies was the price of freedom. That is when they became cult members. That is when they became terrorists. That is when they became terrorist sympathizers anyway. And we lost the gun debate because the acceptable thing, it was acceptable for babies to turn up dead in their classrooms. It's acceptable now for, a 17-month-old baby to be killed in a church. It's acceptable now for Dylan Roof to go to a black church and kill black people who invited him in to try and show him that this is a place of forgiveness. This is a place of, great strength. This is a place you're welcome. And he slaughtered every one of them. They all say that's an acceptable price for freedom. They all say that it's an acceptable price to vote for Roy Moore, that it is possible that he is a sexual assaulter. They said it was okay that Donald Trump admitted to being a serial sexual assaulter, that it was, some Democratic plot, like we put these words in his mouth and recorded him on videotape saying them.
Yep.
I'm sorry, but they're just these people are beyond redemption. They are beyond the pale. They should not have the deference of people like you and me. We should not engage them. We should shun them. But yet, I always feel more Christian than they do. Meaning, I always feel like I need to witness for them. Do you know? I do. I feel like I need to show up for them and help them and save them.
Randy, one of the people that I'm telling you about, he goes to the same church down in Maryland as Ben Carson did, and he showed up in Pennsylvania. My friend, he has a timeshare down in Pennsylvania, and we go there for a week every year. And he invited me down there, and he invited this other guy down there, and he wouldn't shut up about, Seventh-day Adventist stuff, and, did you watch this video? And, all this conspiracy bullshit. And it got to the point where one of the people that my friend's aunt and uncle were there, and I'm not going to go into specifics, but, a couple of people were, like, really, really, really pissed, and, one of them was almost ready to throw him through a window. And and this guy, years ago, I grew up with this guy. He used to deal weed and stuff down in Washington Square Park and all kinds of crazy stuff. Politically, he's totally changed since those days. And he was sitting here with me one day, and he said, "You don't really believe that Hitler murdered 6 million Jews?" And really dumb shit started coming out of his mouth. And it was he got to the point where it was like, yeah, I believe that everybody should be able to possess a gun. And I said, Donald, do me a favor, leave now. I don't want to continue this conversation with you. I consider myself a Christian. I go to church when I can. I pray here and there. I'm not perfect, but I'm me, and that's the best I can do.
Well, listen, the idea that, politics and religion is mixed up in his mind, we don't live in a country like that. We live in a country that has a separation between church and state. You render unto Caesar what is Caesar's, render unto the Lord what is the Lord's. He can believe whatever he wants to believe, but once he's finding himself watching videos that are making political...
And trying to force it all on other people all the time.
Well,
I get these videos from him
I understand,
constantly.
But what I'm saying to you is that once these videos that he's watching are mixing religion and politics, that right there should be a big red flag to him as a religious person, that whatever he's watching is false. It's a it's a false prophet. It's a false prophecy. It's a false attempt to mangle and mutilate religion in order to get adherents in a cult-like fashion, so that whatever bad behavior, killing, murdering innocent children in a school, is now permissible. That people won't realize that is what a cult does. Is they take people with deep faith or deep desire to believe in something bigger than themselves, which is normal, and they turn it into something abnormal by mixing politics in with it. And once that is the case, walk away, because you're now participating in a cult. It's like Jim Jones in Guyana, People went because they were looking for something to believe in, and they ended up being talked into their own suicide. Listen, if you start countenancing the murder of children or the murder of 6-year-olds, or if you start saying, hey, I would rather vote for a child molester than vote for a Democrat, you've become a cult member.
Yep. All right, Reverend Randy, let me go. I got to do something.
All right.
Thanks.
Go ahead. I don't know what you have to do, but the way you said it's kind of creeped me out. I don't know what that was. No, but seriously, you don't mix religion and politics. You'll never get a good result, ever. God even told you that. He did. That's in the Bible, too. So when people start doing that to you, when people start, explaining that, I would rather vote for a child molester because that's in the Bible than I would for a Democrat who simply wants to extend all equal protections of the law to all people all the time, and, want to give health insurance to children and ban bump stocks so that one lunatic can't kill 58 people in 4 minutes, you've become a cult member.
To speak to Randi, call now, you bastards. 561-270-3844.
Hello.
Randi Rhodes. Air Force.
Hey guys, it's Scotty, Randi's producer here, and as many of you know, I grew up in Randi's house. You know, eating her food, watching her TV, and like most kids, ignorantly not following her advice. And one of her biggest pieces of advice was, never take a job in radio, because the big companies that run radio, they suck. Well, I didn't listen and ended up working in radio, and as always, Randi was right, they sucked. But I'm here now, and I can tell you that it takes a lot of chutzpah to break away from the big companies and start your own show. But you know what else it takes? Your support. We are independent media, so the only financial backers we have are you, the best listeners in the world. And we can't do it without you. So please, go to RandiRhodes.com and support the show, buy a stinking podcast, donate some money, and keep us going.
Hey, I need to tell you something about Herky Jerky, because over the past year, you've been asking me to ask Jason from Herky Jerky if they will ever produce a turkey jerky. Well, I'm proud to tell you that he says absolutely yes. And not only does he have it now, it's absolutely spectacular. Let me start with the taste. It is extremely soft and slightly sweet, and it's bite-sized pieces that taste just like the homemade oven-roasted turkey that you have on Thanksgiving. It's made from turkeys raised without added hormones and just the right amount of salt, natural smoke flavoring, and spices that will make your taste buds go wild. And you asked for healthy. Well, Herky Jerky Turkey Jerky has no nitrates, preservatives, MSG, or artificial ingredients, absolutely zero fat, and packs a whopping 11 grams of protein per serving, and very low in cholesterol. Quite simply, I think this is one of the healthiest and best tasting high protein snacks you can get. And for the whole month of November, $5 off any turkey jerky pack you desire. $5 off, just use promo code TURKEY. They don't sell the little dinky bags that you get at the gas station. They're 14-ounce zip-sealed packs, and they're meant to last. Herky Jerky, making quality jerky and meat snacks for almost 25 years. Gotta tell you, I believe this is as good as anything I've ever tasted and the best thing they've ever produced. Try some today, herkyjerky.com.
This is the voice of the resistance. You're listening to the Progressive Voices Network.
Dear fellow progressive, these are the times that try men's souls. It is not the first time our country has been in peril, and it won't be the last. It is, however, a unique threat from within, one the precise likes of which we have never seen before. It is our modern media mix that has enabled an incurious, unserious, pathological liar and textbook narcissist to accede to the highest office in the land. His is a world of make-believe, one that could only have been concocted by a student of reality TV. At least we know he studied something. The imagined slights, the trumped-up, pun intended, feuds, the insulting nicknames, the Twitter diarrhea, it is all of a piece. Entertaining, funny even in another context, but when you're busy blowing up the country's longest-running foreign relationships, devastating the environment, threatening trade wars, and embracing all the wrong actors, it's really hard to find the humor. At Progressive Voices, we take holding the powerful accountable as our most serious mission, and there is nothing more important to us today than making sure the PV audience is informed with unbiased information and that more and more people become part of our audience, and therefore are better informed than they can be by relying solely on the mainstream media, which, in so many ways, has shrunk from its duty as the watchdog of democracy. It is our sincere hope that you will help us in this important mission at this most critical hour. Go to ProgressiveVoices.com and make your donation today. Please give whatever you can. Remember, we are a tax-exempt 501c3, meaning that your donations are fully tax-deductible. Thanks for supporting the Progressive Voices Network.
Hi, it's Randi Rhodes. Listen to me on the PV live stream or on demand or both on the PV app. Just go to ProgressiveVoices.com or download the Progressive Voices app.
This is the Randi Rhodes Show. To speak with Randi, dial 561-270-3844. That's 561-270-3844.
So here now with more, attorney David Wohl and AV Stoddard, associate editor and columnist for Real Clear Politics. Welcome to both of you. Good to have you here. David, you're defending Roy Moore in this situation?
Well, look, the timing of these allegations 1 month before the election makes them highly suspect. I mean, let me get this straight. These acts allegedly took place in 1979, and her first disclosure is 38 years later, not to law enforcement, but to a newspaper that has endorsed Roy Moore's opponent and is hell-bent on taking him down. I'm sorry, the credibility is completely zero. Mr. Trump, President Trump went through the same thing during the election. 3, maybe 4 women made outrageous
yeah, but they weren't 14-year-old girls.
Against him. One said it happened when she was 13. She didn't show up at a press conference and mysteriously dismissed her complaint against him shortly thereafter. So, I mean, the girl also admits, Martha, during this time that she was suffering from drug addiction, alcohol abuse.
Oh, my God.
She was
that's
basically
not the point,
incorrigible.
David. It's not a question of her character. It's a question of his character. He was the adult. He was 32 years old.
I mean, these people, where do they find them? They like pick up rocks and they come on the Fox News and they say, listen, let me just tell you that Roy Moore, his opponent, Doug Jones, is a prosecutor who prosecuted a 50-year-old murder, a 50-year-old case of the Ku Klux Klan putting a bomb in a Baptist church in Alabama and killing 4 little girls. And he wouldn't give up on it. So it happened 50 years ago. So what? He still was able to prosecute it. This idea that because it happened 38 years ago and the girls didn't go to court, but their whole families knew and their friends knew, and 30 people told the Washington Post after all these years, they were afraid to go to, first of all, he was the freaking DA in their county. Then he became the district court judge in their county. Then he became the Supreme Court justice in their state. Where were they supposed to go with this? I mean, this is just disgusting. And I'll tell you something. If it's false because they're all lying. And that's all. That's the only way it could be false. 30 people lied. 30 people lied to the Washington Post. That's it. It's the only way it could be a lie. Scott in Los Angeles.
Happy Friday, you
Happy
bastard.
Friday, you bastard.
15 years I've been waiting to talk to you.
Oh, wow. I hope this is good for you.
It's great. Hey, so much, I don't know what's going on. I just wanted to ask you, you're talking about the Lucy K thing and this disgusting Alabama piece of crap and why Democrats are destroyed when they do something wrong and Republicans get promoted to the highest power in the land, which is crazy to me. What do you make of Louis C.K.'s apology? Well,
at least he's saying he's not calling these girls liars, and that is in this day and age is welcome. But he did it, and what he did was just disgusting.
Yeah, it's crazy because I think it was Howard that answered the call. I was contacted by Kara, the New York Times reporter who wrote the story a month ago. She saw some comments that I made. I'm in LA. I write for a lot of comedians, and one of the women in the story told me this happened to her 4 years ago, and she had seen that I commented on it. So she called me, and she just said, these stories have been around for years, but we want to make sure they're true before we publish anything. And I just thought, wow, isn't it interesting how some people want to make sure things are true before
well,
they
that's
say
the
them.
thing. The Washington Post did not print these stories without verifying the facts, without going back to the courthouse to see if this woman actually had a custody case pending on the day that she said she did, and if she was with her daughter, and all that checked out. And then I'm sure before they go to press, and this is something maybe people don't know, but the legitimate press does not print or tweet anything about you until you've had a chance to comment. They'll call you ahead of time, tell you they're going to press with this, and they'll ask you for a comment about it before they put it in the paper. Now, if it has to do with national security, they will call the appropriate agency and ask, is this going to endanger U.S. security, or will it, somehow expose sources and methods? Is this okay? And everybody gets to weigh in before it goes to press. So that's how the legitimate media works.
Yeah, it's that's how it should work. And and one other, just really, I know you're busy and you have the show to do. Mm-hmm. Do you think something is afoot? Do you think this election on Tuesday is a sign? do you think these stories coming out and these women coming? Do you think people have just had it?
I certainly hope so.
Do you feel a sense of that?
Yes, it's coming from everywhere. And, it's really interesting because, you have everybody from Harvey Weinstein to Roy Moore and everything in between. The people who are honest with themselves have said things like, these stories are true. Thank you. You've got Weiner reported for prison this week because he did something that was just disgusting. And then you have the Republicans who are consistently voting against exactly who they are as a shield, and then getting caught with, guys in a bathroom and having to resign. And, you know what I mean? It's so the outcome is different for Democrats than it is for Republicans.
It's absurd. And then I just want to say, you mentioned the bathroom. I routinely show people who are not familiar with you yet, and they will, several clips. And two of my favorite clips of you are on Larry King, and one is where you talk about the bathroom. And one of my favorite quotes of all time, Randi Rhodes, is, the list of gay Republicans is longer than the cast of Rent. And then also when you were arguing with Ben Ferguson, that piece of shit about
you go to Iraq. You go. How old are you?
You go. Yeah. Well, hey, everyone, buy a podcast. Get a stinking podcast. Have a great weekend. You're the best, and I'll talk to you in another 15 years.
Thank you. Okay,
Love you,
I'll look forward to it.
Bye, guys.
Love you too. Thank you, Scott. So for those of you who don't know, there's a couple of other stories out there. And the one that he's talking about is Louis C.K. Louis C.K. Had 5 women come and say that he didn't even wait for them to get their coats off and when they would go, into a room after a show or something like that with him, and that he would just, whip it out and start masturbating. And 5 different women, came forward. And today he put out his statement. And it doesn't excuse the behavior, believe me, it doesn't. But, you can see the difference. You'll just see the difference between somebody who is open and honest versus a cult member like Roy Moore, and President Donald Trump, who after the admission of sexual assault comes out of their own mouth and is captured on videotape and is played for the American public to see, they say he's been set up. I mean, it's just the reaction is so different. Louis C.K. said, "These stories are true. At the time, I said to myself that what I did was okay because I never showed a woman my dick without asking first," which is also true. But what I learned later in life, too late, is that when you have power over another person, asking them to look at your dick isn't a question. It's a predicament for them. The power I had over these women is that they admired me, and I wielded that power irresponsibly. There is nothing about this that I forgive myself for, and I have to reconcile it with who I am, which is nothing compared to the task that I left them with. I have spent my long, lucky career talking and saying anything I want. I will now step back and take a long time to listen. Now, that is the difference between somebody who's open-minded and somebody who's looking to blame others for their own behavior. The timing is wrong. They were paid. Women do this for money all the time. I am aware of no woman who ever reported any sexual assault for money. I know so many women. I've talked to millions of women in my lifetime. No one has ever told me openly that they were sexually assaulted and won money for coming forward. No one. Marita in Portland, Oregon.
Yeah, Randy, it's good to be on.
Thank you.
Take a minute of your time. I'm a retired Child Protective Services worker out of Oregon.
Okay.
And I just glancing at these Alabama child molestation laws. Roy is a classic sex offender and pedophile. He knows it. And I bet you there's hundreds of Child Protective Services workers in that state that know it, too. And I can barely speak. I'm so riled up on this. And I want to thank all the issues that they love to stir up between church and state, timing, and every other damn thing to cause a confusion and the looking in another direction. And you're doing a good job in piecing through this mess.
Well, thank you. I appreciate it because, if we say that children are sacrificable, that their lives aren't affected for 38 years, after the fact, that it's still something that lives in the pit of their bellies every single day. If we look the other way because they want to elect a man, something has gone awfully wrong. Something is seriously out of control.
That's right. And he damn well knew his power when he was sitting in that courtroom in 1979 offering help to that mother. He knew it then, and I'm really curious about how many other children he has molested since 79.
Yeah,
I bet you were in the
it is interesting that the sexual offenses don't and they're not like singular things. They are serial things. They are things that and we have had conversations before about child molesters on this show when there was a drug that was being talked about that would make sex offenders impotent and all this stuff, and it was being considered and all this crap. And it just when you looked at the recidivism rate of people who actually do go to jail for this crime, and then they come out and they do it again. They do it again and again and again and again and again. There is no way that there were just 4 girls. There is no way that Donald Trump, sexually assaulted one woman on an airplane and never did it again. There is no way. When you look at Bill O'Reilly's victim list, I mean, there are 8 women on that list that had the courage to come forward. It's never a singular event. It's a serial thing.
You're absolutely correct. Another thing, I wonder how many court reports filed by the Child Protective Services worker and about the law enforcement in that state crossed his desk.
Yeah.
As he's sitting out there molesting the little girls.
I don't know, but I will tell you that this man is, he thinks that he is above the law, that he is, Jesus Christ himself, and that he will apply the biblical law to his people, whether it's in the state of Alabama or if it's in the U.S. Senate on all Americans, because God wants that. To know the will of God is so preposterous and presumptuous that right then and there, just right there, people ought to reject his candidacy. Even beyond this accusation, even beyond this story in the Washington Post, the fact that he thinks that biblical law is somehow for him to interpret and for him to apply and for him to keep women away from their children because he decided that this girl who had, an affair with another woman is somehow, to be prevented from having, visitation unsupervised with her child. Who the hell is this man, and why do people believe him? That's the bigger question.
That's right.
And it frightens me. It frightens me. Like I said, I used to try, because I lived in a lot of what you would call Bible-thumping towns. I mean, I lived in towns where the people went to church on Wednesday and Saturday. Okay, you know what I'm talking about. These were people that spoke in tongues. These were people that handled snakes. These were people, and they would, listen, they'd go, they'd do that. They would, say that, they were with God and God is working through them and blah, blah, blah. And they knew the will of God and all. And I found them to be interesting. But when I noticed that they would come home and pop some pills and beat their wives, I got to tell you, that was culture shock for me. But, that happened to me so many times in so many places. I've lived in Mississippi. I have lived in Alabama. I have lived in Southern Ohio. I have lived in West Texas, East Texas, North Texas, South Texas. I have lived in Wisconsin. I have lived everywhere you could. And I know this country, and I am telling you, most people are not like this, but there are people who are. And they vote, and they scare me because they mix this I know the will of God thing with politics, which God told you not to do. You want to end up like Saudi Arabia? You want women not to be able to drive or leave their house with unless they're with a male relative? Keep going down this road. Keep going down this uber fundamentalist I know the will of God thing, which is a cult. It is not Christianity. It is not any religion that would be recognized in any legitimate church, temple, synagogue. It's a cult. And I don't care what this, I mean, I do care that what he did, if it's true, I feel for these girls who had the courage to come forward, even at this late date. Maybe it took them this long. You ever think of that? Maybe it did. But beyond the accusation, which only Republicans would make without, showing you proof of pedophilia, this man is ill-suited. He is unfit for the office of United States Senator. He's unfit because he says he knows what God wants for you and for this country. And we don't even need you because God will fix it. So why did he create man in the first place? Buy a stinking podcast. Go to RandiRhodes.com for the whole thing and a podcast. Buy a stinking podcast.